Hello, I'm Hank Green, and this is SciShow. So we made a video about this once before, but some of the studies we cited turned out to be bunk, and in general, I think we played our cards too close to our chest when it comes to how we really feel about genetic engineering here at SciShow. So, why are GMOs bad? They're not. They just aren't, not intrinsically, and certainly not for your health. We've been eating them for decades with no ill effects, which makes sense because a genetically modified organism is simply an organism like any other organism that produces tens of thousands of proteins, but one or two of them were proteins that were chosen specifically by us humans.
Although genetically modified plants have become a staple part of agriculture in the world as well as in our diets, there are still major areas of concern for skeptics that need to be cleared up. While it is known that none of the genetically modified plants contain allergens that can harm humans, there is still a risk of other health defects that could occur from continuous consumption of certain genetically modified plants. The alterations in the gastrointestinal tract of the rats in the study that was performed by Ewan and Puzzati were not severe, but if the study had gone on for longer, there is a chance that more extreme results could have been recorded, giving us a more complete understanding of these risks. Another unknown property of GMOs that needs to be looked into is the long-term effects it could have on the environment. During the study, Schumann et al. Observed that the ability to create a biofilm and adhere to the surface was vital to the survival of the yeast observed. When comparing the genetically modified yeast to the parent strain of yeast, they saw no signs of dominance of the genetically modified yeast over the original yeast, and the genetically modified yeast was unable to break the biofilm of the original yeast and disrupt its formation. However, these strains were the only two tested, and the genetically modified yeast's inability to infiltrate and dominate the original yeast does not mean that other GMOs cannot greatly disrupt the ecosystem in the area they are found. It has also been found that gene flow can occur within a group of bacteria and eventually reach other plants, but the extent to which this can occur is still not known. Since genetically modified plants made their first commercial appearance in 1996, their use has increased dramatically, and it has become almost impossible to find an industrial farm that does not employ this tactic. With this explosion of genetically modified plants being used, I think that we should continue to grow these modified plants as long as constant testing is done on them to ensure their safety. Without the threat of new allergens, these plants are equally as safe to eat as the non-modified plants, and they have a higher yield. Since the use of genetically modified technology, overall crop yield has increased by 22%, and the extra money farmers get from this increased yield has led to a profit increase of 68%. Not only has it increased yield and profit, but has also decreased the amount of pesticides used by 37% and greatly decreased the amount of tilling necessary of the land. This increase in profit and decrease in pesticides used does not just help the farmers, but it helps the environment too. I also support the use of genetically modified plants in agriculture because the evidence that has been presented against it stems almost exclusively from studies that do not accurately represent all of the factors involved. The study performed by Ewan and Puzzati observed rats on a diet consisting of almost exclusively potatoes, as well as 6% of their diet being protein, which is far less than a healthy diet would recommend. So the gastrointestinal issues they observed could very well have been from the malnutrition of the rats. Christou even referenced a study performed on mice that held them on an almost exclusively rice diet that was the equivalent of a human eating 72 pounds of rice a day. The lack of concrete evidence and the inability for anti-GMO researchers to produce valid studies has led me to side with the pro-GMO group.